from Ike Education here in Abilene, Kansas. I'm Helen, your Ike educator. Did you know that it's your constitutional right as an American citizen to write to elected officials to share your concerns, questions, and share your opinions, even to the President of the United States? Today in our program, Holding History, we are going to look at examples of students just like you who wrote letters to President Eisenhower, our 34th President of the United States. First, let's make sure you all know what a primary source is. Primary sources are evidence from the past. They vary widely from objects like photographs, artifacts, autobiographies, maps, movies, newspapers, and letters. The key is that they were created during the time period being studied. The Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum have a ton of primary sources. But most of the time, we learn from secondary sources like textbooks, your teachers, and websites. I'm even considered a secondary source. They're all results of someone else learning about a topic and teaching it. Those can be great tools. All these clicks. Start. Most of the time, we learn from secondary sources like textbooks, teachers, and websites. I'm even considered a secondary source. We all are a result of learning about a topic and sharing our knowledge. These can be great tools to learn from, but when you learn with a primary source, you actually get to hold and interact with a real piece of history in your hands, and you get to make your own conclusions. The Eisenhower Presidential Library houses thousands of documents from Eisenhower's lifetime. From there, I went looking and found letters written to Eisenhower by children to help us get a glimpse of what life was like from 1953 to 1961. These letters are primary sources, and today you will become a researcher. We're going to examine the first letter together. What do you notice about how this letter is written? Are you able to read the cursive writing? When you are researching, it is common to see all different types of handwritings or languages used. If you cannot read this, don't worry, we're going to help you through it. Please have your Dear Mr. President letter analysis sheet out with a pencil. So what we're first going to do is listen to the letter to get some basic information. Don't worry about writing anything down yet, just listen.
Dear Mr. President, I am Phyllis Ann Barnes, and I am in the 4th grade at Jesse Hunter Black School. I have heard lots of people complain about our country and government, so I'm writing this to tell you how much I love my country. I like the beautiful mountains, streams, parks, lakes of Minnesota, the big trees in Yosemite, the Grand Canyon, Indians of New Mexico and Arizona, the wide open prairies of our home state of Kansas. I also like the smooth, wide highways that our taxes help pay for. And it is because of this we pay taxes. So at our house, we do not mind paying taxes. And I also like the privilege of choosing my own Sunday school, friends, pets, TV shows, food, and clothes. It sure makes me feel good inside when I hear the Star-Spangled Banner and when I hear you talk. I can hardly wait to see our new flag. It sure does make me feel safe when I see the big bombers go over our house. I pray at night that we never have to use them. I think you are a very nice president. My daddy said that anyone that wanted to could write to the president, so I am, to thank you for what you are doing for us. Sincerely yours, Phyllis Ann Barnes.
That letter contained lots of information for us to learn about Phyllis and the time frame in which she lived. Let's examine it. Who wrote the letter? That's right, Phyllis Ann Barnes. How did you know that? Yes, she signed her name at the end of her letter. All right, question 2. On what date was it written? You got it, March 8th, 1959. But how did you know that? Yes, she wrote the date at the beginning of her letter along with her home address in Wichita, Kansas. Question 3. Why did she write the letter? Or what was the purpose behind the letter? She first writes that she is writing to tell President Eisenhower how much she loves this country, which she can find in her third sentence. She also writes that she likes the smooth, wide highways that her family didn't mind paying taxes because they enjoyed having good roads. This expert of the letter gives us a glimpse into what was happening in the US in 1959. A few years earlier, President Eisenhower passed the Highway Act to build the interstate highway system that now crisscrosses our country. Prior to this, the roads were just primitive local roads, so this was a huge project. It was both paid for with American tax dollars and it changed the lives of Americans. One more topic Phyllis writes about is that she enjoys the privilege of choosing her own Sunday school, friends, and pets. Why would she include that? Of course, she could choose these things. Well, getting to have these choices is all part of our American freedoms and democracy. Not all countries get to choose what religion they get to follow or what they can personally own. Okay, we did an example together. Now it's your turn to analyze a letter on your own. You're first going to choose one of these two letters, letter 1 on the left or letter 2 on the right. You're going to read through that letter. Then on the bottom half of your analysis sheet, you're going to fill it out, just like we practice. I'll give you a few minutes to complete this. For letter 2, we can identify that that's written in cursive. I don't want that to frustrate you if you can't read it. I've provided a typed version of the letter beneath it. Start. I will be reviewing letter 1 first. Number 1, who wrote the letter? Linda Hay, and we know this because she signed her name at the bottom of the letter. Number 2, what date was it written? You got it. It was June 28th, 1955, and we can find that in the top right-hand corner of the letter. Now, why did Linda write this letter? She wanted to thank President Eisenhower for her 2 polio shots and to share that her mother trusted him and prayed for him. We need to have an understanding that polio is an infectious disease caused by a virus that can spread from person to person and cause paralysis. Well, there is a vaccine that was created, and the Polio Vaccine Assistance Act of 1955 was passed by Congress and signed by President Eisenhower. President Eisenhower wanted to make sure that the polio vaccine was provided to every American. Pretty cool. So, what does this tell you about the author or the time period? It showed that young people had an understanding of big concerns going on in the world, like polio. It reminds me of students like you today having an understanding of a similar illness that has occurred in the past few years with COVID-19. And also, Linda wanted to share her accomplishments with President Eisenhower. Okay, let's move on to letter 2. Who wrote this letter? I love this letter. Danny Jackson. Now, this was a bit of a challenge if you chose to read it in cursive. I applaud you if you were able to decipher the letter in cursive. Way to go. A lot of our older documents are going to be written in cursive. So, Mr. Danny Jackson, when did he write his letter? January 26, 1956. And you were able to find this in the top right-hand corner. Why did Danny write this letter? He wanted to ask President Eisenhower if he thought it was fair for his class to memorize the Gettysburg Address. I just love that. Danny definitely wanted to question what his teacher was expecting of him and his classmates. And he thought he would ask, the Supreme Allied Commander, the big guy in charge, the president. Now, this reminds me that kids back in 1956 and kids today really aren't that different. Today, you held history in your hands, well, at least virtually. We analyzed primary sources to have an understanding that we as American citizens have the constitutional right to share our opinions, to ask questions, and to share concerns with our elected officials. I hope you all will be joining us for our last Constitution Day program this afternoon, where we will write our own letter to the President. If you can't join us this afternoon, here's the information you will need to write the President. Believe it or not, the White House actually prefers that you send emails over letters. Or is that really that hard to believe? But it's up to you how you would like to correspond with President Biden. Thanks for joining us today, and happy Constitution Day.